champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
Number one. You win.
Hey guys, I'm Sai, and welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show, and this is episode number 37. Just myself and Danny today, but as usual, you can find the video version of this show and all our other shows at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation, as well as the audio versions at all your favourite podcasting and radio apps, and like the links to which are all in the description. So give the YouTube channel a subscribe, help us out, help us grow, as it were. So tonight we're going to talk last night's UFC, or Saturday's UFC, a little bit of Bellator, some UFC news, MMA news, and we just didn't get around to watching the boxing. Unfortunately, there was too much to watch. But I saw the Pofkin versus Dillian White. I saw the finish to it, but that was about it. I didn't have time to watch the whole fight. But talking to me about all these things and more is former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend, Mr. Danny Batten. Welcome, my friends. How are you?
All right, Si, and everyone else who's listening. Yeah, I had a good week because it's my first week back training after about 6 weeks. Been a bit of a shock to the old body, but I survived it, and looking forward to next week.
Gotta get that beer belly gone. Gotta get it gone.
Yeah.
All that 6 months of lockdown drinking and eating. Just got
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Mm.
But yeah, it's. I'm assuming it's good to be back, mate.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I love what I do. I'm in a really fortunate position to do something that I enjoy so much. But yeah, like I say, I'm not a young man anymore, so the old body's screaming at me a little bit to slow down, but I've had the weekend to rest up, and I'll be ready and raring to go tomorrow.
Here we go. So just before we get into the UFC card from last night, we had some little bits of news drop. So first of all, it was announced that Petr Yan will face Aljamain Sterling for the title, the bantamweight title. What do you feel about that?
Oh, well, you know, as we know, Jan's been on a tear, but Sterling is no mug, and I think Sterling's going to do it. Yeah, I don't know. I just think stylistically, I just think he's going to do it somehow. I think he's naturally more athletic than Jan, and if he does things the right way, like I suspect he might well do, I think he's going to put some of that physicality on to Jan. He has to rush Jan. Don't let Jan settle. I think he has to go get him from the start.
Yeah, look, Petr Yan is just incredible. I think it'll be an incredible fight, actually. I think both guys will just go hell for leather. Be interesting.
Yeah.
Fight.
Yeah, I mean, he's only Sterling's only ever been stopped once by that Reyes with a knee, and other than that, he's only had 2 split decision losses. Split decisions, you know, because to show that it's obviously a really close affair.
Yeah, 100%.
And with the amount of fights that he's had to, have that one KO, I don't know. I think this guy's the real deal, and I think he's dangerous. He's dangerous. I mean, you can't write Jan off, of course not. I mean, look what Jan's done of late. But I just think stylistically, Aljamain Sterling's he's got it on him on paper. He just needs to. I mean, who knows now? Now Petr Yan's flying higher than ever before. That might make that confidence an unstoppable confidence. But I just think on paper, looking at them both, I've got my feelings set on Sterling to do this.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Jan. I just been ultimately very impressed with everything he's done in the past couple of years. But by no means would I be shocked if Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Yeah, I mean, if I could sit on the fence, I would. But I'm going to, force myself to take a nod in a certain direction. And it's all too easy to just go with Yan because he's got so much attention lately. But Sterling's really been doing good things. What is he on? Something like a 5-win streak, now, and I don't know. He's the real deal. I just think he can do it.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Like we've mentioned before, that I think Brett Johns has only lost a couple of fights in the UFC, and I think they're to Aljamain Sterling, Pedro Munez, and someone else up the top. I think it's 3 in total. But I mean, it's not bad. All those guys are like right up the top of the division now. So
yeah, exactly, they are.
Shows the talent that he's got. But I just think I agree with you. Aljamain Sterling is superb, and he's been a champion in other promotions, I know, but I'm not sure if he's never had a title in UFC, have he? No.
No, it's always
shocking.
I'm just wondering whether he's actually even fought for the title. Has he got up at that level?
Just having a quick scan through his UFC career to see if he has. I can't see one. Yeah, it'd be interesting. So in 2018 he beat Brett Johns via decision. He beat Cody Stanman via submission. Then he beat Jimmy Rivera via unanimous decision. Pedro Munez via unanimous decision in 2019. And then earlier this year in June he beat Corey Sandhagen, which was like a bantamweight title eliminator, and he won via submission in the first round.
Yeah.
Performance of the night. So I think he's there. He's so many losses. He's got 3 losses in his whole career. He's total 22, won 19, lost 3. So it's impressive record.
It is, yeah, and he's been in UFC for a long time now. So he's well grounded there. It's not like nerves are going to be getting the better of him. I think he's fully comfortable in the UFC set, and I think he's ready to maybe take that crown. I just think if it's going to happen, it has to happen for him now.
Yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting couple of days in the lightweight division as well, as Tony Ferguson was active on social media again. He called for Conor McGregor or Poirier to fight him in a lightweight title eliminator, is how he described it. And someone asked Dana White about that last night after the event, and he basically said that they're looking to do Ferguson versus Poirier in October. Jeez, they've taken some beatings, the pair of them, over the last. They've got a lot of mileage up on their clocks. So that's going to be a good one. But I'm going to go Ferguson on that one. See, if you'd asked me this before his last fight, I would have 100% gone with Ferguson. I just feel like the last 2 fights with Ferguson, I just haven't. I don't know what it is. Something hasn't quite been there. I'm not gonna knock Ferguson on that last performance. I just think Gaethje was just. I mean, Gaethje, as we all knew anyway, was so dangerous. Could beat anyone on any given day, no matter what the level. But he was just another class. He was more composed, more precise, more efficient. He really did do something extra special, even from his normal high level standard. So I'm not going to knock him for that. And I don't know. I think he's going to have the edge on Poirier. Yeah, he's going to be close, but it's going to be a belter of a fight, I could say.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, I definitely want to watch it.
Adesanya and Paulo Costa have been going back and forth.
Yeah.
They do not like each other one bit.
No, they don't. And I think that's going to make it exciting. I just worry Adesanya is going to just keep it really long and frustrating to watch.
Well,
which is what I think he has to do, really.
The last time he was worried about his opponent, which was in his last fight, it was made for a very boring fight.
Yeah.
Whereas all his previous fights, where he was just going out to do his thing, they were all very exciting, and he had all the tools in his arsenal were out. So it'll be interesting what type of way he goes.
Yeah.
But for us as a viewer, hopefully he goes with emotion, and they just go hell for leather, the two of them.
Yeah, in which case I've got to go Costa on that one. I just think he's just such a powerful, aggressive You know, he's going to try and eat you up. He ain't going to worry about, you know, can I say pussyfooting around on here? Pussyfooting around, you know, just trying to get a W on his record by making it a ball fest. You know, everything about that guy to me resonates excitement, desire to win, and willing to put it on the line from the get-go. I think he's going to go and get him.
I think my one thing with Adesanya is he's so accurate.
He is,
and he's got the ability to, you know, to kick, to strike from any direction, any angle, and get his opponent right on the button and put him to sleep. So it'll be interesting because if Costa goes in hell for leather and puts him under real pressure, he hasn't got necessarily the time to pick that precision shot. But as we've seen with McGregor and others, sometimes you play into that type of fighter's hands by going pushing into them because they just wait and then they pick the right shot and they hit you as you're coming in.
Yeah,
and it could be game over. So
yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if Adesanya sort of takes that fight where he's going to go head to head. I think you are going to see some strategy at play to keep it long. But you know, if Costa's got anything about him regards, you know, doing a strategy to try and find a way in, he'll be trying to stop Adesanya's rhythm and fluidity and don't let him settle. Basically, I think he's got to rough him up. I think he's got to be quite diverse with his approach. I think he should be grappling into him a little bit with the striking on the breaks. I think sometimes when you're giving away precision and distancing and some element of footwork, I think you have to kind of like push close and make it a little ugly, and try and wear down on your opponent, make him sit on his feet a little longer than he normally would. Whereas if he starts dancing, it's hard to stop him dancing. I want to see Costa make it a little bit ugly, and rather than trying to just strike his way in and trying to land those bombs, I would like to see him shoot in sometimes and throw those bombs on the break so he's already engaged range. I think that would be safer than trying to come in range with those power strikes and maybe getting picked off on the way in. I'd like to see him getting really close and actually catch him on the retraction back out.
Absolutely, mate. I can't wait for that fight. I can't wait for that card. Actually, it's going to be incredible.
It's a good one.
So we had Bellator 244 on Friday. There's a couple of decent fights on there, but we're going to focus predominantly on the Ryan Bader fight versus Vadim Nemkov, which was for the title. I think it was the lightweight or light heavyweight.
Yeah, light heavyweight.
What did you make of this one, mate?
Yeah, I mean, you know, my very own Linton Vassell's fought Bader. We know how real he is. You know, he's got reasonable striking, but what makes him dangerous with the striking is the fact he's such a good wrestler. So he can sort of like concentrate on his striking without the worry of being put on his back. But the issue he had with Nemkov was just another level of striking. And you could actually see it in their forms. Bader was throwing some hands. He was throwing several low point kicks. But Nemkov shin blocked every one of them. So he's clearly got a good read on what kind of strikes are coming forth to him. But the longer the bout went on, the more erratic Bader's footwork was looking. And you could just tell he doesn't have that pedigree of striking like Nemkov clearly has. And Bader's composure began to wilt, especially at the beginning of that second round once the old gas tank started to wane just a little bit. I mean, Bader's a fit guy every time. He's clearly always well prepared, but he's hitting his late 30s now. And Nemkov, I think it's something like 28, is like a decade his junior. And with that advantage that he appeared to have with his striking form, yeah, it was a step too much for Bader. Bader started looking uncomfortable in there. Some people might say that was stopped a little late, but Bader did really well to avoid any really meaningful damage on the ground, partly due to his wrestling capability of being able to stand up. It really did fight to get back up and get back relevant in the fight, but I saw the doubt in his face before he got knocked down. He was beginning to doubt himself, and if he had got up and survived that second round, I can't see that he was going to get through that third.
Yeah, I thought Nemkov looked pretty dangerous throughout.
Yeah, very clean, very clean and tidy looking at that light heavyweight.
Clinical, wasn't he?
Yeah.
in both in defence and attack as well. Like
Yeah, very composed.
Anything which Bader tried to do, Nemkov had an answer for. Just before the finish, he hits him with a beautiful, or it was part of the finish sequence, beautiful head kick, and then he kind of finishes him off with hammer fists and blows just into a minute or two into the second round. But it's the head kick, which right in the back, sort of side of the head, round the ear. Bader was never going to recover from that. And
no, well, like I say, Bader was getting under pressure and his form was beginning to break. And one of the things that happen when your form begins to break, to avoid being struck, you lean. And he started leaning back. Okay, he was using footwork along with the lean, but when you lean back, you've always got to come back again. You know, when you lean off balance, you're going to come back into range, and that's why Nemkov was able to start throwing up the high kicks. He knew there was going to be no counter consequence, and they was all a shot to nothing. And that one got through, and it led to the finish. Yeah, we got a new champion. I think he's going to be hard to beat at the minute. I'm just trying to think. You know, I think a lot of the light heavyweights are in that division. Kind of aging foes. I can't see there being anyone to challenge him from the look of that sort of skill set that he showed in that match.
Yeah, he looked very, very good, and I just, like I say, I thought he was exceptionally clinical in the way he went about his business defensively, as much as he did from a from an aggressive or attacking point of view. Just trying to find a list of Bellator light heavyweights, which is harder than you would think. Right, so there we go. So I don't know how up to date this is. So there, maybe we got. Well, it says Nemkov's the champion, so it should be relatively up to date. I'll just read off the list because it's not a massive list. You've got Liam McGeary, who's an English light heavyweight. And then
he's good. Good striker.
Phil Davis, Melvin Manhoef, who is...
he's another aging one, just a striker, really.
Yeah, he's Dutch by the looks of it.
It's just a pure striker.
Alicio Sakara. Looks like he's a former boxer and kickboxer, so I would imagine he's a bit of a striker. Nemkov's champion. Christian Edwards, American. Grant Neal, Chuck Campbell, Lee Chadwick, is an English guy. James Mulheron, Tyree Fortune, Aruna.
It's
nothing.
When you start listing off some of the light heavyweights that are in UFC,
Corey Anderson is probably the one.
It's a weaker division at the minute. It really is. Not to take anything away from the fighters, because they've all been legit, but you know, those ones that are sort of like at the top end of the tree have kind of like been around a long time, and you know, they're probably past their best. And with the look of that performance that we saw, you're going to have to be at your best and have everything fall in place as well to try and stand a chance against this guy.
They've just signed Corey Anderson, who's 30, so he's not too old. And you know,
what happened with that then? What happened with him leaving?
UFC released him, which is a bit weird, but he won a performance of the night.
That's right.
Obviously, he beat Johnny Walker at UFC 244. Then he lost to the Jan Blachowicz, who's the champion, in February. I don't know if his contract was up, or whether he, you know, I think his behaviour after the Johnny Walker fight upset a few people, because he taunted and screamed at Johnny Walker, and he shoved the referee, and I think he got fined for that. So whether that kind of meant they didn't renew his contract, maybe. But he had one fight left against Jan Blachowicz. Which is interesting, because what if he had beaten Jan in that fight, and then I don't know if that was for the title, but Jan Blachowicz is the champion now. So could have been interesting, but he didn't. He got knocked out in the first round. And now he's a Bellator. Now he signed a multi-fight deal. So He was granted his release. I just saw it says so. He asked for his release from UFC, and they let him go.
Yeah, so he's probably in some financial talks with Bellator. There's probably offering something that better than UFC were offering at the time, I guess. And that's the only thing you can think about.
When I look at those rankings, and there's no disrespect to any of those Bellator light heavyweights, but he's the only one I look at, and I think maybe he'd have a go. The rest of them, I can sort of well, to be fair, there's a few on there I'm not familiar with, but the ones I am familiar with, I kind of look at and I think he's a good striker, but maybe hasn't got the wrestling or the grappling to be able to cope with Nemkov. Nemkov is so good all round that it's going to take us something decent to get through that.
Phil Davis is still very, very relevant. He can strike safely enough to get the opportunities to try to push for those takedowns. But I don't think he's going to like that pressure, that intelligent, that well-structured pressure Nemkov will bring. I think that will see, I think Phil Davis will just find it a step too much.
But then again, like Phil Davis, 35, that's the one problem with Bellator is they sometimes seem to sacrifice the younger fighters in terms of releasing them or whatnot, but they're holding on to all these guys who are like 35 or 36, and it makes it very difficult to build new stars to fight your title holders, and then you end up with these kind of fights which, like Liam McGeary, 37. It's
been around a long time. It's almost become like the pre-retirement show.
Go there for your last big payday.
Yeah.
No, I shouldn't say that, but it's frustrating, I gotta say, because I think there's enough young fighters around who could have a chance of doing something. If they're kind of in the Cage Warriors sort of place, and then maybe they're not quite going to UFC yet, but if Bellator could pick up those young fighters, they could give them a big platform to push on.
Yeah, I think, well, look, Cage Warriors has pretty much become a feeder show regards anything coming from the Europe side of things.
Especially with now they've got that contract with the UFC.
Yeah, that's
Fight
right.
Pass.
And BAMMA was kind of like becoming naturally the progression. You'd go BAMMA, then over to Bellator.
Yeah.
But now the Bellator sort of employed the BAMMA staff for their Bellator Europe, but then of course BAMMA's been dropped. I think they should have kept that BAMMA going and had it as a natural feeder show, and then they would have had that young talent coming up through.
You've got to build new stars, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to last night's UFC. We'll start with the first fight of the main card. Mr. Daniel Rodriguez versus Dwight Grant. What an interesting fight this was. Yeah,
this was back and forth, wasn't it? Rodriguez coming out throwing really heavy, and Dwight Grant is quite rangy and loose with his strikes, and clearly got a fair bit of power in his hands too, because he drops Rodriguez, and it looked like it was going to be curtains. I think the ref was looking ever so closely at stopping it, especially now the refs seem to be under
very close to stopping it. I think, wasn't he?
Yeah, I just think that he covered so tight that I think the ref knew none of them were really getting through. It's not the smartest way to defend an onslaught, the way he was doing it, but I think he just was trying to move right at the right times, blocking well, because he wasn't getting hurt overly when he was on the ground situation, but he rose back up, and the good thing for Rodriguez is he put it on Grant from the get-go. As soon as he did get back to a neutral stood position, he just went attacking, and it nearly happened again. He nearly got in trouble again, but he connects with Grant and he sends Grant back, but Grant was already tired from the onslaught he had put on Rodriguez, and I just think therefore he couldn't defend so well, and it was getting rocked. It was looking ugly for him, and he couldn't get through to the end of the round, but it was exciting for as long as it lasted. But what can you do when two people throw down like that?
Yeah, it was interesting. Because you had Rodriguez got rocked after a quick start. It looked like Grant was going to take it. I did think the referee was going to stop it. And then as they got to their feet, and they were close in, Rodriguez just hit him with a really big left hand in the pocket.
Yeah.
It just rocked him, and he never. A combination of that shot and then a couple of other shots which he took in the follow up, but also the energy, like you said, which he expended trying to get the finish just before, meant that he went from nearly finishing the fight to being on his back and taking heavy shots, and he got stopped.
Yeah, this is the difficulty, and the thing is, for Grant, the opportunity to win and take Rodriguez out from the get-go happened so early on in the round that he was expending energy to try to get that final nail in his coffin, and it just wasn't there. And then the finishing line was just too far away from him once he started getting tagged upon himself. So, well done to Rodriguez, really, to be on the receiving end as he was. Clearly was not perturbed when he stood up, because he went straight back in for the row. He wanted to throw the bar stool and chairs at Grant. And Grant started looking like he was gassing a little bit, and he just didn't receive the punishment as well as Rodriguez received the punishment. And the refs did step in at that moment. So, yeah, well done, Rodriguez. I mean, he kind of did it the right way, I would suggest, because to me, on paper, Grant, over the course of those rounds, would have been too technically sharp for Rodriguez. Rodriguez had to make it ugly, and ugly it was, and it pulled him through for the win. Well done.
Impressive. Next up was the ladies, and I was shocked by this result. I was expecting it to go one way, and it kind of did in the first round. It went the way I was expecting, and then she had an adrenaline dump, as they put it, and it was all went different. But it was Maria Agapova versus Shauna Dobson. Agapova was exactly what you thought you'd be in the first round. She was impressive. She pushed.
Yeah.
Did she push too much?
Absolutely. I think this was the issue, really. Agapova has done what she always does, and I think she is getting sold on her own hype that's what she's becoming known for, to throw down hard from the get-go. And don't get me wrong, that can get you the wins. But, a true champion, a true high-level fighter is going to be someone who does the right type of thing against the right type of opponent. She should have, or her corner should have said, hey, look, slow things down and pick your moments to burst that energy.
Sorry to interrupt you with that.
Yeah.
Especially Shauna Dobson's the toughest fighter she's fought in the UFC.
Yeah.
This is her toughest fight. So she's got to, and her camp have got to understand that you can go after the early win as you normally do, but you've got to accept that you might have to go 3 rounds.
Yeah. And look, Shauna Dobson as well, when she was shooting in on Agapova, although Agapova didn't stop moving, she was taking her down way too easy. And Agapova had to bust another nut to sort of get up into a scramble scenario. And although she kept getting Dobson in some positional trouble, Dobson was able to get a little relief in that fast pace by scoring those takedowns. So I think Agapova's had something to learn there. Let's hope that she learns from it. Of course, she can still fight with that kind of intensity.
She's so young as well. I
mean, she just has to learn to turn it on and off, and just pace it right, because this is ultimately what lost it. I think it was all for her to win. She's clearly a talented girl, clearly aggressive, but the strategical implementation on someone the level of Dobson was what saw her undoing at the end of the day.
It was a flawed strategy, I think.
Any of the other girls, lower down the ranks, I think she would be just too much from doing what she does, and then it would be a good sort of strategy to do. But Shauna Dobson, you're not going to run over her so easily.
But where do you think, I've just got it on now, and I'm looking at it in this first round, and if you just watch it just on the first round, I think the first 2 minutes, she does everything right, and then with about 3.5 minutes to go, Dobson kicks her off her as she's got her in mount, and as she's moving to try and to get an angle to hit Dobson kicks out with both legs.
That's right.
And Agapova kind of goes flying off her, and then after that she seems so everything before those first 2 minutes, I thought everything Agapova did was very clinical and very focused, but then after she got kicked off, it was almost as if she was rushing to get back to that position, and I feel like that's where she became hectic and maybe she was desperately trying to do something, and then she ends up underneath which is then expending energy, which she was not before.
Yeah, that's it. I just think, the aggressive energy she uses, okay, you can kind of warrant someone releasing some of the energy, like we saw with Grant. There's good reason to do it, but she got taken down and then was spending time underneath, and then she had Dobson on her back, and it was looking a real tricky situation. But she carried on trying to go at full bore. There was no waiting for the right time. Especially trying to escape positions in the correct way. You kind of got to feel when the person in the advantageous position on the ground not switches off. That's the wrong thing to say, but they can't be tight all the time. They've either got a transition, where there's windows of opportunity to escape, or they've got to release from the pin a little bit to try to ignite some striking opportunities.
Yeah,
she everything was just hard work, and she gassed herself out. Simple as that.
Do you think that moment where about halfway through the round, pretty much bang on halfway through the round, where she got kicked off, is when she should have regrouped? She should have regrouped and kind of reset herself. Had maybe gone for some distance striking, just to set herself again, and then see where the fight goes. But she was so desperate to get back to this aggressive position.
Yeah,
and then literally when that second round starts, she had nothing.
No, that's it. But she had to fight out of difficult situations. She had Dobson on her back. She was half guarded for some time at the end of that first round.
If you watch her get up as well at the end of the first round, she can barely get up.
Yeah.
And she finishes in quite a strong decision mount, but
she recovered the position really well. But the position she was in were always high energy. So when she was being aggressive, she was using a lot of energy on her feet. When she got the back towards the end of that first round, there's already been a lot of exertion being put in. But to try and stay on someone's back, trying to choke a man, ground and pound them as she was, that's another high intensity. You're locking out your legs. You're trying to throw shots which involves your core, because your legs are being used to tie up the body to maintain control. These are not highly efficient positions when you've already exerted yourself. If you're absolutely fresh and you're on the back like that, okay, you can be efficient about it. But when you've already exerted yourself as much as she had, suddenly they're quite exertive positions also. That armbar she was in,
young, by the way, didn't she?
Yes, she does. And that armbar situation, her saving grace for that was that when she was being armbarred attempted by Dobson actually had both her legs under the opposite arm, rather than being over the head. And that was her saving grace. Had Dobson had that head position, I think that armbar would have been on. I think the match would have been pins potentially stopped through a submission. But Dobson just didn't have the correct position with a leg that should have been controlling the head. Some people that would have been overlooked, but that's something I observed, and I'm like, that's nearly everything's in place for that armbar. She just didn't control the head, therefore you can't dominate the posture. But well done for Dobson. Really, you got to think that she was still under legit pressure, really legit pressure.
Shayna Dobson was 8-1 to win that fight. That's a massive underdog. But even I just watched the start of the second round again. So the start of the second round, Agapova comes out. She literally looks like she's out on her feet as she's coming out to the middle, and then her choice of what should I do in this fight is to try and go punch for punch with the fresher Dobson, who's a good striker anyway. She gets nailed with a kick and a couple of big right hands, and that's it then, because I feel like she made, whether it's down to her corner or her, I feel like from the middle of the first round to the end of the fight, she made very poor decisions on how to tackle the fight.
When you're really tired, you generally don't think as clear. When you're exerted as hard as you are, or particularly in that situation, you don't think as clear. And Dobson just exploded from that underneath position. Dobson got took down very, very quickly by Agapova. I think, again, because Agapova was just sort of so all over the place. She was kind of hard to predict for even experienced Dobson. But Dobson, once she exploded out, Agapova had no muscular strength to keep her down, because she got out from a really bad position into a good position way too easy. And it was because of the exertion and exhaustion that Agapova had setting in on her after that first round onslaught.
Yeah, I mean, take nothing away from Dobson. It takes a lot mentally to be that much of an underdog. Everyone expects you to lose. To have the mental fortitude to go and perform, especially after maybe you've probably lost that first round. To then go and, to put that second round to bed the way she did, to finish it the way she did. You have to do your job, don't you? Even if your opponent's unpredictable.
I just think that Dobson felt that there was weaknesses there in Agapova's game in that first round, and that's why she come out so confident in the second. I just think she perhaps felt stronger, or she felt that Agapova perhaps didn't have the outright power in her strikes, that she felt that she didn't have to worry about that, because she come out absolutely confident in that first round. It was actually Dobson taking it to Agapova, and Agapova's, we know her mentality is to stay on the trade.
That's why I was confused why Agapova decided to go toe-to-toe with her at the start of the second round. It made no sense to me to do that when she was clearly gassed.
Yeah.
And
but she did bail out.
Stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. But Agapova did bail out. She ended up initiating the grappling in that second round. So she only traded for a certain moment, and then
but that time she got hit with a head kick and two big right hands.
She did. Yeah.
When you're tired, I'm imagining that head trauma is not ideal.
No, exactly not.
But look, I gotta say, Agapova's so young that she could eat. It's nothing for her to be overly concerned. Like, when I say overly concerned with, I mean the loss. Obviously, she's used to winning. Obviously, she's got things to work on, etc.
Sure.
But you wouldn't be surprised to see her come back and pick up some victories. I gotta say, I still think that she's probably the better fighter out of the two, but her decision making during the fight was poor. Very poor.
I absolutely agree.
Just my opinion, though.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
But yeah, well done, Shauna Dobson, because I thought I love seeing the underdog, and everyone wrote her off. To do that is real impressive. Next up was Austin Hubbard versus Joe Solecki. Danny, did we see a future star in Joe Solecki?
Solecki looked good, confident, crisp striking. Looks after. Everything that he chose to do was a preconceived notion. Looked very, very good. It kind of looks a little bit like we was talking about Nemkov. It's kind of similar to that. Holding very, very good form. He backed off with the right times that he should back off. I mean, Hubbard's no slouch in his own right. No. It really isn't. But
Solecki, he's only 26, by the way.
Yeah, and Solecki showed really great striking, really good decision making, good wrestling and good grappling. He really did show that he's a potential full package that could come into contention within the next 18 months.
What did you make of their exchange where Hubbard had him? Solecki had him against the cage, and they were kind of wrestling on their feet against the cage. And before you knew it, he was on his back, and he had the figure four on the legs from the back.
I mean,
slick.
It impressed me the way he got his back. Now, Hubbard was using head position on Solecki, and Solecki, to disengage it, just dropped levels on him, and he got his head to his hip, and then that's how he worked his way round to the back. Sometimes in those wrestling exchanges it can be just a little fortunate in exchange, where you just find yourself getting a good position. But this looked like something he's done in training time and time again, and it caught Hubbard completely out.
Hubbard didn't seem to know what to do to get his legs, because he had his legs. He had one leg around his waist, and he had his other leg linked around his knee, and he just didn't seem to know how to get it off.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. He was trying to kick one of the hooks off.
Yeah.
That's something you might choose to do, to kick a hook off in a grounded situation, but not when you're stood up with your body weight and someone else's. You can't go up on one leg like that. No. Yeah, you're absolutely right. He was a little lost on what to do. I think in that situation, it's really, really hard to get someone off your back, especially in the first round. I think he should have just leant against the cage, and in particular against a post. He chose to go against a cage wall. He definitely should have gone up against a post, because he could have taken a rest position there and taken the weight off of his back, so to speak, by putting the two body masses up against the fence, and just throw that round away with the lack of loss of energy. Just defend one arm, stop the choke, just know that round's gone, and just start better, knowing to expect that he's got this little transition to get round to the back and be ready for it the next round, and try and make yourself more relevant. But he was trying all sorts of really inefficient ways of getting Solecki off, and Solecki was just too slick. He lost control of the arms, and that choke was went in. And
Once it was in, it was over, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's just too fresh, and yeah, it's game over.
So you know, when he's on his back, stood up, why do fighters not go? Like, I see some older fights, they often will kind of jump back onto the floor to break the hold. Now, obviously, the risk with that is if they don't let go when they hit the deck, they got you in the, you know, they've got you back on the floor. But I'm wondering why you don't see that. So don't seem to see that as much these days.
Yeah, well, if you go onto the ground in that sort of way, you're momentarily opening up your neck on the jump back. Because to jump back, you've got to straighten your spine. You've got to almost backflip to generate some kind of impact on the ground. Yeah. It's a little bit like the same situation as someone putting a triangle on. Now, you can pick them up and slam them, and you might get away with it. But a really slick jiu-jitsu guy, you pick them up and slam them, on the impact, it's going to tighten it up because you're thrusting your head down deeper into the triangle. So it's not always the best way. You can get away with it. It's like, you know, choosing to go balls out in the first round, and you might add something to your highlight reel. But if you don't, like we saw Agapova, the consequence of that is you can gas out. It's a little bit like that, really. When someone's on your back, you're expending energy to flip them onto the back to try and cause them some kind of harm, but you're momentarily opening yourself up, and really, it don't get you out of the situation. You do that, they're still on your back.
Yeah, unless you do it very hard. But I mean, even
it's not the answer.
You're limited. Yeah, I was going to say you're limited in how much pressure you're going to get, or like how much force you're going to get on you.
That's right. Yeah, it's crude at best.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it's when you weigh it up, like risk versus reward, it's not going to be.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, I mean, back along, you're talking about the real older UFCs, the retro ones as such that we've covered. Someone
they didn't
will
have
jump.
the jiu-jitsu skills then.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah, they didn't. I wouldn't have their head always tucked in. And for the guy that's got someone on their back,
they used to panic.
They just panic, and they just do whatever first comes to mind. It's just not that way anymore.
And I mean, in fairness to Hubbard, whilst he didn't know, or he didn't look as if he knew how to get himself out of the position in terms of the legs locked in, he didn't panic. He was just, he was kind of, you could see him running through different methods of trying to get him off. Like he was trying to kick, like you say, kick his leg away because he had that leg hooked around the inside of his knee. No, that's not good. It's hard for me to explain because obviously I'm just doing it by voice only. If I could show you this if we was in a gym environment from the get-go, but basically, what I was saying about put them up against the post, and then you've got something to push on your opponent to try and turn them around, and you try and pummel an arm back round. You try to spin him round to the side, therefore the front of you. But he did none of that. He was a little bit stuck on what to do, and in which case you just sit tight. If you can't get out of a situation like that, you just throw the round away and keep yourself safe for another round. He's carried on jostling with the arms. He was trying to kick the legs, and he just opened up more opportunities for Solecki to take the victory. Yeah, I was going to say, it seemed like the more when he did go against the cage, because he kept trying to get out of the grapevine, if you like, he seemed to be getting closer and closer to the choke. And by the time the choke opened up, he had it in so tight, it was seconds. He tapped straight away because he knew that. He completely screwed up. Yeah, he screwed up. He showed a couple of witnesses in some kind of, I call them like grey areas because they don't get much coverage. Regards you don't see it much, do you?
Coaches
Standing rear naked chokes, though, do you? Really?
No, you don't see.
I'm sure
the
you do, but like, as a fan, like, I don't see very many completed stood up.
No, that's right.
Chokes.
No, it is a little bit more rare, but it is still part of it, and hence I call them the grey areas. But those grey areas have still got to be covered because if you're lost in those grey areas, they can become positions of a finish. And
people will target it then as well if they see you don't know what to do.
It's bad enough getting tapped out on the ground with a choke, but to be tapped out on your feet is it's like an insult almost.
Yeah, I can understand that. Next up was Marcin Presidio versus Mike Rodriguez. Didn't last too long. 2 minutes of the first round, 2 minutes 17 of the first round. Mike Rodriguez won via KO via strikes. What you got this?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, both of them looked nice and powerful at the beginning, but Rodriguez was the first one to start getting the connections, and so early on, such a big, powerful guy. You get in trouble early on, like Pacino, is that how we pronounce his name? Pacino did. It looked like once he was on the receiving end, it didn't look like he even wanted to be in there with Rodriguez. Rodriguez just did what he had to do, and he had that type of opponent in front of him. He hurt him, and the opponent really had not a lot left to give once he started showing some vulnerability, and he just reacted really badly to it. And that was just going to send signals to the ref, hey, stop this for me, sort of thing. He just gave out the wrong vibes, it really did. But that clinch,
about a minute in, he took a shot and he kind of looked like a rabbit in the headlights.
But let's not take away from the skill set that set it up from Rodriguez. He was catching a lovely clinch, and Martin's choice was and some great knees. And Martin was trying to punch his way out. Now you can get away with punching your way out. You really can, especially being in the first round where you've got strength to maintain your posture like you did. But you are vulnerable to being kneed, and we saw it. But the choppy elbow, this was really nice, because when you've got a tie clinch and you're thinking about knees, you're sacrificing two arms for the control to make your knees the weapon. But what was nice about it was he showed some diversity of thought and strategy by letting go with a single tie clinch and then popping up that elbow. And that's what led to the start of the slippery slope for his opponent.
That first left elbow in the clinch was just brutal.
It was lovely. Yeah. And he threw through them, so clearly this is in his game.
Yeah, never two, didn't he? Straight down as he was down.
Right. Yeah.
It was the knees that set it up, wasn't it? Where
he caught that tie clinch. And again, tie clinch is something that we've not seen a lot of. I think Anderson Silva was the last person to constantly use it as a weapon that was part of his arsenal. That I can't remember the name of the guy. Franklin. Do you ever remember the fight with Silva and Frank? Oh, it's just devastating. He spread Franklin's nose across his face like a pirate's eye patch. It was really nasty. But he demonstrated really good tie clinch, and the tie clinch wasn't just a tie clinch. He could turn it for choppy elbows while maintaining that single cup hold on the head, knocked him dizzy along with those knees. Great, brilliant. I'm happy for Rodriguez. I can't remember seeing him fight before. I don't know whether we've covered any of his before, but I'm actually going to try and do a little bit of research and look at this guy, because what I saw was pretty impressive, and hopefully he's going to be someone that's going to be moving up those ranks and getting someone else into the contention, and making those divisions even more exciting.
Yeah, there's the two elbows on the floor which he hits, because he hits the one in the clinch. Then he hits he glancing one as he's falling, and then the two he hits during the when he's down are absolutely brutal. Just having a quick look to see. So he's fought a lot in Cage Titans, right? So last time he fought in the UFC was on the Korean Zombie versus Frankie Edgar card in December 2019. So we wouldn't have covered that.
Yeah, I guess I don't remember covering him.
So he hasn't fought for a long time in the UFC.
Yeah.
And he lost that fight via knockout. But it looks like he's banned actually. Oh no, that was his opponent from one of the fights. So I'm not sure. Maybe he's been injured or just a weird one. But it'd be interesting to see because he's 31, so he needs to be active, and really kind of. He was on the Contenders series initially,
right?
And he won a contract via a flying knee knockout. So I mean, it's clearly.
Oh well, there you go. So
clearly a tool he likes to use.
Yeah.
But he hasn't fought since 2019, so hopefully we'll see him again soon enough.
Yeah. I mean, look, if I was in Martin's corner and I saw that tie clinch and saw that he was getting trouble, I'd be telling him to shut those shoulders. Drive the shoulders into the forearms, because it helps strip you out of the grip. And either trying to shoot in to try and smother the affair, or break free back out into the open. But it looked like he had no real clue how to deal with that tie clinch, and just was sort of punching his way through. Which again, doesn't necessarily mean you don't know how to deal with it. Some people are really powerful there. I think who's the guy who's fighting in the next coming weeks? Robbie Lawler.
Yeah.
If you tie clinch someone like Robbie Lawler, he's someone who's going to punch his way out. He's not going to do anything too flashy or technical. He's going to clobber you back, but with hands. So it's not to say that he actually didn't know what to do. It was just not effective. In which case, you got to go to game ban plea, and he didn't have it. But I would have been shouting out, "Shuck your shoulders and get back into our special. Shuck those shoulders to break the link of that tie clinch and drop levels, and try and smother the striking affair."
Yeah, but no, it was impressive. Next up then was the main event of the evening. Number 5 ranked Pedro Munez versus number 8 in the featherweight division, I should say. But I think Frankie Edgar will be in the top 5 of the bantamweight division after this. Went the full 5 rounds with Frankie Edgar picking up the victory via judge's decision. Tell me what impressed you about the fight, and then who you gave the fight to.
Yeah, I actually, when I finished watching the fight, I had Munez winning 3 rounds to 2, quite simply because the overall striking landing percentages were reasonably close overall, but I just felt like he was playing the main stalker. But I wouldn't have been surprised the result going the other way either, quite simply because Frankie Edgar was impressing me with his combinations. He was landing really nice 1-2s, and he was landing repeated uppercuts, and with those uppercuts were either single uppercuts or he chained uppercuts for counter, along with hooks and then straights thereafter. He really was putting the combinations really well together, but he was having to footwork off a lot. Munez, as we know, he's a complete hunter on the feet. He really is. He'll press forward and push you back, and that's exactly what we saw. Now, he started playing a really good strategy. Remember me saying last week that I thought Edgar might lose, because I think at that weight division he's going to lose the main advantage, which was his speed. And I felt like the way he stances, his lead leg's a little bit vulnerable to being leg kicked. Now, Munez started targeting his leg very, very early, and it started to bother Edgar over the course of a few rounds. I just felt that if Munez had focused on that lead leg just a little bit more, he would have made the combinations that Edgar was getting off less effective. And I feel like then he would have had more calls to hack at those legs to get an outright conservative win. So he would have had a double strategy for him. One to lessen the effectiveness of Edgar's combinations because of that hampered lead leg. Because once your leg hurts, you kind of got to punch over the top of it. You lose a lot of your power and a lot of your precision on your combinations. But Edgar played it really well. He was lead leg slipping to try to make those leg kicks ineffective. He was landing those wonderful combinations, showed great footwork and composure. And Edgar quite often in these fights comes out looking worse for wear. He marks up very easily. But it was actually Munez who looked more worse for wear facially at the end of it. They was both blooded, both bruised, but Munez was wearing the fight on his face very, very early. Now, whether that's what went against him for the judges, who really knows? I think it was a combination of the fact that he was blooded very early, and I think that some of what Edgar was doing was more visual. Edgar was being more the complete MMAist. He was incorporating some shoot attempts, even if the takedown weren't nowhere near there. He was disrupting that forward motion pace from Munez, shooting him on doubles and singles, breaking off for them, continually striking combinations. And, his cardio just amazes me. It just amazes me. I don't know whether he just trains extra hard with fitness, whether it's a God-given talent to be as fit as he is, or whether he's just so composed, he just don't get himself rolled into getting exhausted because he just don't ever feel anyone's pressure. Because he certainly is composed. I mean, Munez never once stopped coming forward at Edgar, and Edgar just didn't look once to be overly perturbed. He just footworked away, kept it so he was being safe, and kept smart with his combinations. It wasn't like he was moving back and being a punch bag. He was making himself permanently relevant, and Edgar, he's still relevant today. That's just amazing. It's just utterly impressive, and over 3 weights now that he's proving to be relevant.
Yeah.
It really, really impresses me, and well done,
it's
Edgar.
very good.
He's done a lot better than Aldo, put it that way.
Jesus. I'd like to see Edgar fight Aldo next. I got to be honest. I think that would be my choice for their next fights.
Yeah, because they've fought twice before, and Edgar's lost twice, hasn't he?
And I think fighting a bantamweight would be really interesting.
Yeah, because they're now 2 weight divisions away from the time that they had fought before, and you got to wonder, based on Edgar's performance and the way Jose Aldo's been performing, you've got to wonder whether Edgar would romp it. But then styles just sometimes create nemesis for you. So maybe Aldo's just got that style that will always block Edgar from being successful. It'd be interesting to know. The only way we're going to know is by getting that match on. And I'd actually be interested in seeing that trilogy down at that weight.
Yeah, it'd be very, very interesting to see how it goes. Look, I thought Munez had the better of, had the more significant strikes, but I thought Edgar had the kind of better combinations and variety of strikes.
And that's probably what gave it the edge. It probably really did. So as much as I said, hey, look, 3 rounds, I'd give that because he had Edgar having to fight on the outskirts all the time. And I know some of the fights they've been scoring that quite big. And so that kind of got put on the forefront of my mind. He was really looking predatorial in there. And Edgar, although looking comfortable and never looking like he was being pressured to discomfort, he was still having to, play the counter guy. But he countered very well and he got in the win. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it was a really, really enjoyable fight to watch. And whilst I felt Munez probably won, it's not like it was like this big robbery where...
No, I wouldn't say that.
Can't believe it's gone that way.
And to be honest as well, I'm glad we got a good old 5 rounds to watch, because so many of the other fights were over so quickly.
Some of these fights were done in seconds.
Yeah, they didn't go on very long at all.
Yes, it was better this way. But yeah, it was enjoyable card again by the UFC. So next week we have a very interesting card. Actually, I'm looking forward to this one. We've got the main event is Anthony Smith, ranked number 5 in light heavyweight, versus Alexander Rakic, ranked number 8. Who have you got for that?
I'm going to go Smith, but this is one what you really could go either or way, to be fair. But I'm going to push for Smith on this one.
Yeah, just about. I'm going to go with Smith. Only just though. It's a close one. For me,
it is a close one.
Especially because who did Smith fight? John Jones, wasn't it? And he just didn't do himself justice at all.
No.
Everything which he had done to get a fight of that caliber, he kind of didn't do, did he?
Yeah.
Another interesting fight on that card is Robbie Lawler versus Neil Magny.
Yeah, I mean, Neil Magny, he's been doing ever so well, but I'm going to go Lawler. But this is yet another one that really could just go Magny's way. I mean, as Lawler just got too many miles on the clock now. But he's always impressed me when he fights. He's always still there, still in it. So I'm going to go Lawler.
Yeah, I'm going to go Neil Magny. I like everything about him as well.
Yeah, he is doing ever so well. He really is. And like I say, I wouldn't be surprised if it went his way. And I just think for outright stopping power, I think Lawler's got the tools to perhaps end it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can believe that. So that's it, mate, for tonight. Obviously next week we've got another card to discuss. We've also got a guest next week. and I can't remember the order of them, so I'm just going to quickly go check my notepad. I can't remember which way around they were because we've got guests for the next couple of weeks.
Right.
Who is next week? Do you remember? So next week we have Cage Warriors fighter Aaron Khalid joining us, which is going to be cool. We'll be talking the UFC from the night before, including the fights that we just discussed, and we'll also be talking about Aaron's upcoming fight on the Cage Warriors card in September. So that's going to be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to having a chat with him. So if you've got any questions for Aaron, send them in before next Sunday when we'll be recording, and we can put them to the man himself. But I'm excited to have another Cage Warriors fighter on, mate.
Yeah. It's all sounding good, I've got to say so.
Indeed, because we got a guest this week, guest next week, hopefully a guest the week after, which I just realised I've put in your hands.
Yes.
So
you sound like that was put doubt in the way you said it.
Well, because at the start,
need to organise something.
No, it's because before we started recording, I was trying to remember who the third one was, and I couldn't think who it was. And you didn't say. Yeah,
it should be fine. Initially. I mean, it's still a few weeks away yet, but it should be okay.
Excellent. And obviously we've got a growing list of people, and I'm hoping to get even more people on. Hoping to get some female fighters on as well. So we'll see how it goes. But subscribe to youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. Spread the word for the Danny Batten Fight Show. And you can follow the show on Twitter at Danny Batten FS, and same on Instagram. And follow at Ace Podcast Nation on Instagram, and at AceCast_Nation on Twitter. And Facebook is Ace Podcast Nation. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like. And we will see you next week with our special guest. Cheers, guys.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny